Armageddon is back, baby! For the third or fourth time? But today we are going to be building a small miniature scale in a battle on the planet Armageddon. So to start our Armageddon diorama, we're going to be starting with a plinth. And to build it right up, we're going to be adding a bunch of clay. Now to make the clay stick to this plinth, I cut up a bunch of sprues to lay them out for some extra grip. The clay we're using is basically any air drying clay you can find. It's all pretty good stuff. And to make it nice and smooth, you can always add a little bit of water and slap it about. And of course this is set in Armageddon, so our main character is going to be one of the Kriegsman horses. Now I did think about painting him as a Steel Legion, but until the official models do get released, I'll do that another day. Now there is so much stuff happening in Armageddon that is hard to count, but for one of the wreckages I kind of wanted a Blood Angel's sarcophagus of a dreadnought just being thrown into the ground. I'm not sure if it makes full sense how I actually put it on here later, but I really like the idea that there's just layers upon layers of previous battles on the same ground. And it was actually really hard deciding what biome I wanted to do this diorama in. For some reason in my mind, Armageddon was always a desert, and then I actually looked at the recent trailer, and there's pretty much loads of different stuff on the planet. It's not like the Star Wars one planet, one biome rule. So I decided to do it in basically a wet mud, horrific battleground, which I was actually really pleasantly surprised about how this texture paste held up. It really did deliver on the wet battleground front. And to make this start to look a lot more like a battleground and more realistic, I found some barbed wire and kind of just scrunched up in my hand to make it look like it's been destroyed, run over, and it's probably about 100 years old from the last 10,000 battles that has taken place on this planet. I absolutely love this stuff. It is so good, and actually having convincing barbed wire, it is really nice. I also use some micro leaves just to sprinkle on top of the texture paste to add some nice grit and texture. It kind of looks like stones once it's primed. I really like it. Then once the diorama was primed, it was time to paint the mud to look like mud. A lot of people wonder why I prime things after it already looks pretty good. For me, I kind of like having everything look like it's in the same world. And if I use a naturally occurring mud or texture, it doesn't look like I've painted it. This is a completely personal preference thing, and I think you probably should paint less if you can get away with it. If you can save your time, that's the best thing you can do. So then it was time to paint all of that silver barbed wire to look like silver barbed wire. This is kind of the process of painting everything that already looks like it was to look like it was, and it's probably the most repetitive part of diorama making. But I think it starts to look really cool at this stage, and the mud effect, it looks really good. If you're wondering what the paint is, it's Dark Brown by AK Interactive. Also, the destroyed Blood Angel's dreadnought looks so good. That bright red against the dark brown really makes it pop and stand out. If you want to know the scheme, I made a bunch of Blood Angels tutorials a couple weeks ago. They're all still pretty good, and that is pretty much how I paint them anyway. And then it was time to paint the orc's hand. I haven't painted an orc in literally a few years. I find painting green skin literally almost really hard. For some reason my brain can't compute how to highlight it. But for 11th edition I'm going to make a paint scheme on how I do it. And currently I'm actually loving how this diorama is looking at the moment, so after painting some skulls and finishing the gold on the Blood Angel's dreadnought, it was finally time to paint all of those little pebbles to look like stones. And if you have any questions about the diorama process, how I'm painting or whatever, just put them in the comments and I'll pretty much always answer them. With most of the diorama now painted, it's time to add some transfers to that Blood Angel dreadnought, and I think purify and sanctify are the perfect two words that represent the Blood Angels. And with that done, we move to the scariest part of pretty much any painting processes, is painting a damn horse. I try everything within me to get away from painting any kind of like skin tones on animals. It is so hard to get accurate to how they actually look. So of course I have to start with a cloak and try and paint the Kriegsman as best as I can. Which means it's time to paint the horse, and for this I basically used two different shades of brown and tried to wet blend them as best as I could. I think it kind of looks reasonable, and I'm pretty happy with how it turns out at the end. But this model is so cool, and this is the first time where I've kind of understood the phrase detail creep, because my gosh, there was so much detail on this model. I spent so long painting it, and it was one of the scenarios where you get a bit of paint on some other detail, that get some brown on the blue, and then I'll repaint that, and then you get some blue on the brown, and you're like, oh no, I have to paint that again. And it was basically me for about 3 hours painting this model. There was almost too much detail, but it is stunningly beautiful. But while this was quite a frustrating experience, it was a lot of fun, and it was also really fun trying to guess what colours would go where. The way I like to approach is basically trying to use as many of the same colours as I can, and I think it came up pretty good with basically just reds, blues and browns. Which means it's time to add my favourite part, the enamel wash. Now, this actually really messed up. I forgot to shake it as much as I should, or stir it at least, which gave the whole diorama a really glossy finish. Now, in hindsight, it actually looks pretty cool. It really adds to like the wet battleground that I was looking for. So it was a silver lining on what otherwise was a complete failure of an enamel wash. And here is the finished diorama of the Battle for Armageddon on a much smaller scale. Let me know what you think in the comments down below and what you'd like to see me do next. I've been Reese, and I'll catch you in the next one.